fellow applies for a job as a sales rep, you see, and he goes along with the interview, and he's got this tick, you see, and as he's being interviewed, the fellow says, the fellow who's interviewing him says, well, he said, you're the man for the job, but he says, there's only one slight problem. He says, I've noticed that you've got this tick. And he said, if you're seeing customers and that, he said, it might sort of, it might irritate them. He said, he says, it's okay. He said, I take aspirin and it goes away. So he said, well, do you think you could, take some aspirin now? He said, and sort of show that it goes away. He said, certainly. So the bloke puts his hand in his pocket and gets out a packet of contraceptives and another packet of contraceptives and another packet of contraceptives, opens his briefcase, loads of packets of contraceptives in there. The interviewer says, blimey, he says, you're a sex maniac. The fellow says, no. He says, have you ever been to a chemist shop and asked for a bottle of aspirins? Not a very good one. Good evening and welcome to another exciting show. And tonight the guests are, well, he needs no introduction. It's Ben, Emlyn Jones, and we've got Chris the Gardener and myself, a qualified. Hello, he's gone.
It's gone. Oh dear, we lost Chris.
Something else. Hang on. I think it's the deodorant. That's what's done it. I knew I should have worn that deodorant. And myself, who's a highly qualified, not only bullshitologist but a twat-ologist. The looking into the study of gormless gits that get into senior positions in councils, governments, and everywhere you wish to look at. And I think you've probably got a lot of, shall we say, twats that you've come up against.
Oh God, yes. Twat-ology is a good thing, yes, because there's no shortage of data. Let's just say for this particular science, it's a pretty much a growth industry, we might say. But it always seems like there's twats everywhere. And what's more, it's really weird because we're supposed to live in a democracy, and they go on about this, especially in America. Democracy. The thing about democracy is supposedly the ideal form of government. It's where the people can choose their leaders. Okay, so why can't we choose any better ones then? This is the weird thing. Democratic nations have this terrible malaise where they are ruled by some of the most loathsome people imaginable. Cruel, stupid, cowardly, weak, corrupt, and just the worst dregs of humanity seem to float to the surface, and no one seems to know why, let alone how to stop it. And there's people in democratic countries, leaders that have approval ratings in single figures. And then they're hated by their people. There's fences across Downing Street to stop you getting in. And if these guys walk down the street, and they do sometimes. I mean, Starmer was walking down the street. He was surrounded by a mob that was hurling abuse at him, and he had about 20 policemen around him to keep him safe. Now, so what I'm wondering is, if democracy works, if this is the God that didn't fail, then surely nicer people would get into power. People who cared about the people strong leaders who cared about their country and weren't just representatives on the global stage. But that doesn't happen. So it makes you wonder, what's wrong with democracy? Where do these twats come from? That should be the ultimate goal, the conclusion of the twatological study, in my view.
Do you mean demonocracy?
Demonocracy. That's demonocracy. Ruled by demons. Yeah.
Democracy is just two wolves and a sheep deciding what to have for dinner.
Yeah.
Well, it is.
Right. Well, I like what Paul English said. This is his show. He's an show. It's mob rule. That's what democracy is. Mob rule. Yeah. And really, is who's paid off. And what I'm going on to is, everybody likes to go onto my Telegram channel. I'm going to try and do it tomorrow. Okay. And we're going to do a poll on who you think has been Britain's top traitors. And so far in the running is nominees. We want some nominees. You see, this is why it's going to be done tomorrow. I've got Oliver Cromwell, Churchill, Ted Heath, Thatcher, and Tony Blair. So if there's anybody else you can think of, we can add to them. Now, the reason why Oliver Cromwell is because he introduced usury, reintroduced it, which then put future generations in massive debt. And that is what democracy is there for, to actually take your mind off of what the government, who actually runs the government, because it isn't the government, it's the people who pull the strings of the money. So we're financially ruled. Churchill, I think you need a couple of hours to spare, but he starved a load of Indians to death. A very ruthless, very nasty piece of work. If you look behind the propaganda, Ted Heath, he committed treason by putting us into the common market in 1973. Whether you agree with the common market, EU or not, he did commit treason. Thatcher.
He also had a whoa! I'm not letting you skip past him.
Yeah, okay, right.
The fact that he had a predilection for young boys, and that more than one witness that was abused by him spoke about the fact that he couldn't even bear to touch them, and he used to wear these mechanical hands that he would wear when he abused them. Yeah, I'm not going to let you skip past Heath without mentioning that, mate. He's an outrageously sick and dark character. And he should have been held account for what he done before he was allowed to go, mate. He's a nasty man.
Of course, yeah. I mean, this is a tricky one, though. You're Eric. I mean, this is the other Chris, Eric. I mean, I'll call him that tonight, because this is a competition. This is a competition in which the level of entry is very high, and
it is, isn't it?
I'd like to think of some more names, and if I can, I will add them to the list. I'm sure they're there.
I think you need Savile on there as well.
Well, he's certainly a disgusting pervert, and in a
Was
Ted
he
Heath
a
realm.
traitor?
He was a procurer for the elites. That was why he was allowed to function and run. I think the evidence is overwhelming. His own nephew even spoke about the fact that he witnessed what was going on, because he ran away, didn't he, to London when he was a teenager, and he was picked up by some lads at the station and taken back to a flat. And these lads were basically like scouting people, vulnerable people, to take for these people. And one day he was in this flat and Uncle Jimmy walked in, and he thought Jimmy had tracked him down, but the reality was that he'd actually caught his uncle out. But
wow, I think
there's plenty of evidence to suggest that he was a lot more than just a paedophile.
I think if I could add Andy, I can well believe it, Chris. And I can add to add other people to the list. I mean, there's maybe many thousands who I would call not the people, not the instigators and those who ran everything, but those that they're lackeys, their lieutenants, their assistants,
they're enablers,
the colluders, the collaborators. I'm talking here about people like chiefs of police who didn't investigate Cyril Smith, and other people, and indeed Jimmy Savile. I'm talking about like the various civil servants who helped Heath get us into the European Empire. That's an act of treason, like you say. And the other, there's examples with all those regimes we've been talking about. There'll be examples of people who probably they're not really malevolent people. They say, well, I'm just doing my job. I get paid a hefty salary to look the other way and to do nothing. And that may influence me slightly, but I'm just doing my job, mate. I'm just doing my job. And under the Nuremberg Code, that's not a defense under the Nuremberg Code.
It's not, is it, mate?
Correct.
Just doing the job doesn't cut it, does it?
Going back to Savile, I've got to be careful what I say now, but there's a very prominent person who, shall we say, had an examination, Charles, and apparently, I can't mention his name on air, obviously, but this famous person who had a rather, shall we say, intimate examination. What they found up there was Jimmy Savile's wristwatch, apparently. Someone inside us. So
I know what you mean. Does he wear a very expensive hat?
Allegedly.
Yeah. Does he wear a very expensive hat? That goes up like that.
Yes.
I know what you mean.
And yes, again, I can't mention his name, but I think that
I like that. The man with the expensive hat. I might call it that.
He's named after a dog, actually.
Oh, really?
Yes. I think it's a spaniel.
Yeah, I've got one.
Yes.
Yeah. Lovely dogs, really good dogs.
Yeah,
much better dogs than things, I'm sure.
I know his mum liked corgis, I know, but
yeah, she did.
That's right. Yes. But we can't give his name. We can't give his name.
I think you probably worked out we mean.
I think you've given enough clues, mate.
Yes. Yeah. Well, should we have a quick shifty in chat because it's a bit lively tonight. Here we go.
Why not?
We got here. Now we've got the first person in chat at 7:05 tonight was DJ Flipped.
Hey, DJ.
He's one of your boys, isn't he? He goes onto your show, doesn't he, Ben?
I don't recognise the name, but I mean, he may well have turned up. I mean, we do share a lot of audience, Chris. Eric, we do. We share a lot of audience. Yeah. I recognise Ralph Winter and Mark and Ralph. I recognise. Yeah, I've seen them. Yeah.
Ralph.
Hello, Mark. Hello, Ralph.
And here we go. And we've got Ancient Ruby back. Hello. So good evening, Chris.
Hello, Ruby.
Chris number 2, and good to see you, Ben, again. Oh, that's very kind. Here
I'm
we
not
go.
sure I
Thank
like
you,
Chris
thank you,
number 2.
Ancient Ruby.
Well, who's Chris 1 and who's Chris 2? Yes.
Well, I'm guessing you're Chris 1. Don't know if I want to be a number 2. I could just be CTG if you want.
You be anything you like if you want. I don't mind. Now it says here, what I find disgusting is, were we talking about him? Saying he has, you know what? Yet it is a tactic to bring in William.
It could be, couldn't it? Who knows?
Actually, before the show came on, Ben's got some things to say. I've got something, and I think Chris has. I think we'll have to do another show, the three of us, on my naughty channel where we can say what we like without the fear of YouTube go. I'm sorry about this, but that's the problem, you know. And hang on a minute, you've got your neighbour come on. It's Louise. Chris's neighbour. Hello, hope we are all well. Yes, and because you're late, you missed the last gag, but never mind.
How do you know she's late? She just might not have commented until then.
Well, I don't know. Hang on. She might have done. You never know. But changing the subject slightly, I had a love letter. It's a little bit early because February, when's St. Valentine's Day?
February 14th. It's Wednesday.
Wednesday. So there it is. And I had a love letter, from my local council. Isn't that nice of them?
Ooh.
And here it is. And it says up there, it says here, now there's something really weird because we all know that council tax isn't a tax. It's, shall we say, a contract that they're offering you. And it says I don't know if you've got a large monitor, you can see this. It says here, the right to participate at elections could improve your credit rating. Huh? So if you're not on the electoral register, so that's a bit of, shall we say, blackmail.
They've been doing that for years, Chris. Yeah, they've been doing that for a long time.
We need to make sure our electoral register records are correct. Being registered to vote gives you the right to participate in elections. Nah, it doesn't, does it? And could improve your credit rating. So there it is. So,
well, that's, I mean, the thing about credit rating is that, I mean, lots of things can influence it. Obviously, your income, your past history in borrowing and paying back. And I mean, I know what you can do. What I know you can do, because I did this once, is I actually wrote off to the agency. This was years ago. I was actually applying for a loan to buy a mobile home, which was turned down. You can write off to an agency and asked, it's kind of like the Freedom of Information Act. You can say, I'm writing under this particular act. It's not freedom of information, it's something else. Please, could you disclose my credit rating to me? And they will do it. They will send you your actual credit rating and a list. I mean, this is a normal credit, that is financial. It's not social credit yet, because they have that in China. But there are plans, I think,
afoot. It's on its way.
Yeah, it is. I think there is definitely plans in the foot to have across the entire world a system where we do have like a social credit, and this could be governed not just by your spending habits and your borrowing. It could be governed by things you say, you know, your political opinions. It could be governed by your diet, how much exercise you get, your shopping habits, not just in terms of financial, but just the kind of things you buy. I think that's what happened in China. I mean, for example, they have warning signs in railway stations. If you try to board a train without a ticket, not only will you get a fine, but it will affect your social credit rating.
Good heavens.
You know, this is what Chinese people have to put up with. And there's a lot of Chinese people, about a quarter of the people in the entire world, are Chinese and live in China. And so now they're under that jackboot, it can be spread to other countries quite easily.
Absolutely, that, Ben. That was the whole point from the start, mate. Was they thought if they can do it in China, they can do it anywhere. China's the blueprint, mate. Sorry, I've got to go and let another dog in. I'll be back in a minute.
Well, Louise has said,
SAR.
could Ben be talking about SAR, subject access request?
It could be, Louise. I can't remember what it was called because this was well over 30 years ago I did this. But I did try to buy a mobile home, and I tried to get a loan. I couldn't get it, and I wasn't sure why. It was £10,000. It wasn't a lot. It wasn't like a mortgage. It was £10,000.
My uncle had a mobile home. He lived in it with my auntie up at Bedfordshire. And I liked it. It was really nice. The only trouble is, it's a bit like being on a film set. As you walk around the door, the walls sort of do it. And if you're on your own, you're fine. But when you went into the toilet, you had to put the radio on because it's like a microphone. Sitting there.
Yeah. I ended up living in a flat. I ended up like renting a flat, and I rented a house. This is a time when I had my daughter, and I was living with her mother for a short time. And then I moved out. We moved out after 2 years of getting together. So it's probably just as well I didn't have the bloody mobile home. So that's a blessing in disguise. And it's much easier if you're renting something for that. But it just made me. It was just something I had an experience of at the time. And they sent me back a list of. I can't even remember what they actually said to me, but it did give an explanation of why that was turned down, and I can't remember all the details of it. I mean, I think it was to do with my the type of job I did. I was a hospital porter, and my salary and things like that.
Mate, a credit rating, in my opinion, is no different to a social credit score. That you're halfway, more than halfway there with that already, because that affects your ability to access credit, which can affect your ability for quality of life. So you're almost halfway there with a credit score anyway. It's so dystopian, but we're just marching faster and faster and faster into it now. It really is.
Yeah, that's actually I mean, if you consider like that finance is such a central part of everyone's life, then I mean, if your finances are affected by anything, then that is a major part that's going to affect you the rest of your life. So that's probably true. Also, I mean, it's got much worse to the point where you have this travesty of debanking. I mean, Nigel Farage had his bank account shut down. I mean, it's not. I mean, for him, I mean, that's an inconvenience.
I think that was just a bit of theatre, mate, for the masses. I don't think there was anything in that.
It's been done to. It's been done to other people, actually.
But I mean,
it's been done to people who far less more vulnerable than old Nigel. Actually, there's a lady, a young woman, actually from Leeds called Laura Towler, who she was actually pregnant at the time, and she was debanked, and the bank gave no explanation at all. They just gave her a check for everything was in the account and said, "Get out," and she was, like I say, she was heavily pregnant. Couldn't pay her bills, things like that. Her crime was she was politically active in a crime think kind of way, and so and of course she's not the only one. There's been others as well. Now, whether you agree or disagree,
happened to Max Egan, didn't it? He had all this.
Well, regardless of what you think of these people, you should oppose this.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Definitely, everyone should oppose this because it could be done to you, and it will be at some point.
Exactly.
If your opinions run contrary to the system norm, it could be done to you. So we've got to stop it now. As Pastor Niemoller said, first they came for they came for them, and I did nothing.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it, mate.
That's right. I mean, sorry, Chris.
No, we just need to disengage from it as much as we can. And I said to Chris before on a podcast, it would be fantastic if we had an election and nobody turned up to vote. That would be awesome. Because I think by voting we're given our consent. To my mind, there's no good's going to come out from politics. Not that I can see. I think the way to fight it, if you want to call it that, is just to disengage and to become communities again. Look after the people around you. Stop relying on the state for things. look after the old lady up the road that can't get out and do the shopping. Go round, befriend her, help her. That's what we need. We need to bring back community spirit. And we need to, excuse my French, but we need to fuck off the government, because there's nothing good that comes out of government. Look at all the people that have been killed through history because of governments.
Yeah.
That's my take on it. Anyway, that's where I stand.
I agree with you. I don't vote, but the thing is that you imagine if we club rounds in your area and we said, right, we're going to get road sweepers in, we're going to get someone to empty your bin every week, and we're going to get someone to do this. I think it would cost you less than about a tenner a month.
Oh, for
it
sure.
Costs you about 10 or 20. Because you think in a high, if you're in a low population area, yeah, it costs you more. But in a high population area, it would cost pennies. And those people that are emptying the bins could get a pretty good wage doing it.
Well, of course, they wouldn't have to pay all this tax.
Well, precisely. And also, if they didn't do a good job, you say, right, sling her up, we're going to get someone else who can do it better. And the thing is,
free markets would be so much better, just to have free markets for everything. And
I don't believe in government. You see, that's the thing. We've got this idle mentality where people say this person is going to do this for us, this politician's going to do that for us. No, if you want to know who's going to do something for you, just look in the mirror. Yeah. That's who's going to do something for you.
We got to live our own lives according to our standards, and that means, as she said, if we get to know the people around you, because everything, all the propaganda. One of the bring back the Bradbury pound. For a good idea. There is an Oxford pound actually, which I actually manage to get a hold of some of those. And there's a Totnes pound, and there's lots of local economic trading systems, as they're called. That's a good
Bob. See, that's worth
nightmares now.
Yeah, he's going to win the poll, I think.
And he's on there.
Yeah,
a little bit of vote in there, is it? I don't know, because who's going to be the worst traitor? Because what you do, see, when you vote, you see what percentages after you voted is voted, so you see who's in the winning and who's losing. So that's on the Telegram channel tomorrow.
Well, if I put money on it, that's the one I choose. But
I think you're right, actually. We got old Ollie though. Ollie, I mean, I'll put my money on Oliver Cromwell. He's a pretty good traitor, but.
But having a local currency, a local economic trading system, there are so many more of these than there used to be, because there's thousands of them now. Some villages have their own let schemes, and this completely, it's an economic trading system. It's completely independent of the banking system. It's completely independent of government. If you can get off grid and have a prosperous life, and you need other people to do it with you. You can tell the government to shove it, and you don't need their benefits. They're trying to make you dependent on benefits and things like that. And people say, well, how could we do? Where would we get the resources? And I think a lot of people don't quite understand exactly how easier it is to provide a living for yourself if you do it right amongst yourselves than it is by just going to the government or the system. And because the system is designed to make you dependent, and it's also designed to impoverish you and make you essentially ration everything to the lowest possible level, so you can't really step out because you need them so badly. This means, for example, tax. Now, if someone asked me a few years ago how much tax I paid when I was a hospital porter, well, I said, well, there's my income tax and there's my national insurance on my payslip. Well, what about the tax on? What about the VAT? What about the tax on bus tickets? What about the tax on fuel bills and all the other things I was paying? What about the tax on that? When you tot it all up, it comes from an extraordinary level. I mean, in some countries, I think Canada is one of the worst. It's over 50%. Over 50% of the capital in circulation is forfeit to the state. And what are they doing with all this money? And they're not doing this. We're not benefiting it from us. They're not spending it on filling in potholes or providing more hospital beds or nurses or anything like that. They say, "Oh, we can't afford that."
It's beyond money now, in terms of what. Yeah, they're not bleeding us dry. It's not about the money, it's about the control, isn't it? And the less money that we have, the more control that they have. So finding alternative currency systems is a great idea, because you're giving them your energy when you use their currency, aren't you, really? As well, because it's a debt-based currency. It's we know it's worthless. The only thing that makes it worth anything is our belief in it.
I'll tell you what, I had a really good, this is on a slightly different subject, but I had a really good conversation you both reminded me of. I had a really good conversation the other day because I was discussing this situation and about how, what about the government and the role the government plays. And they said, well, what if we had the government, we lose the police force, which means there'd be no law enforcement. Yeah, but they said this, but then mad axe murderers will run around town and hooligans would. And I said, yeah, what do you mean? I mean, I said, well, firstly, how good are the police at stopping these things anyway? What do they do? If you have someone smashes your window or burgles your house, try phoning them up. They'll send you insurance forms around. I know there's places where look at the grooming gang scandal. Look at these other horrific crimes that went on. The police did nothing to stop it. And we see this again and again and again. But if you say something politically incorrect on Twitter, they'll send a van round. They will literally. So if the police disappeared tomorrow, what would happen? Well, we people, the people who are peaceful, which is the vast majority of the population, we would form citizen militias, which would protect our people. And the citizen militias wouldn't go around collecting speeding tickets and things like that. We would focus on the crimes that people are most concerned about. And if you ask people what concerns them the most, they will say violent crimes. They'll say thefts of various kinds, assaults, and we would focus on them and sod the bloody rude things on social media.
Ben, can I just interject quickly, mate?
Of course.
Just how many of those bad and mad people as well, how many of them are like that because of the system that they've grown up in and the trauma that they've had, which is again inflicted on them by government? I'm of the belief there'd be a lot less bad people about if we had a fairer world that we lived in, if we had a more balanced world where there weren't incredibly rich people, like less than 0.01% of the population flying around living on islands and all that. If everybody had a bit more share of the pie, perhaps there wouldn't be so many bitter and twisted people in the world as well. So, again, that just plays into what you're saying about we don't need government. We certainly don't need the police.
This is actually true. That's a good point. Actually, the system itself creates its own pathological behaviour, and indeed, I think it's actually
designed
intended to.
Mate.
I think this pathological behaviour is what sometimes the Morgoth's Review said. This video called "Power and Its Clients." He made a video and an article about it, and he describes how these certain elements of society are unknowingly serving the state through their antisocial behaviour. And it's absolutely true. And I think in a world where we had less, there was more plenty, there was more peace, we would become. Most people, I mean, they still get psychopaths and things, but most people wouldn't exhibit that. Parents would be more loving towards their kids. They bring them up better. They wouldn't have to go off and work, so the mother could look after the kids and things like that. Bring them up better. And
that's a big problem with society now, is that kids aren't parented anymore by their parents. They're indoctrinated by the state. They go to government indoctrination camps from the age of 4 or 5 years old, and they are indoctrinated, and they're taught to move when a bell rings, to go to their next lesson, to dress the same, to think the same. That's again a big part of the problem, is the fact that parents don't get to bond with their children anymore.
Yeah.
Because normally both parents are working, and the child
they have to under now. And indeed, I said this. I concluded with this debate I had with this person that short of being some kind of orgy of horrific abuse and terrorism, and an anarchist society actually would be far more peaceful than the one we have now. It would be for all those reasons.
Yeah. Anarchy doesn't mean no rules. It just means no rulers.
Exactly. We're a social species. We self-organize instinctively. Just like wolves, if you put wolves together in a forest, they will form into packs. You put humans together in a forest, we'll form communities. We self-organize. And we do it. We don't need elections. We don't need taxes or elections. We will immediately fall into certain roles within that community, and we'll fall into groups, and different people with different skills will do different things. Things like that. It's a complete myth, and it serves the system as a myth that the government essentially saying you need us to protect you from yourselves. Yeah, and things like that. We don't
know because
we need protecting from them.
Well, that's it, because we would have, let's say where you live, you would get a proper legal police officer who knows law inside out, common law, and then you'd have a militia. And this fellow would be walking around the streets all the day. You know, we get to know him. Hello, how's things? He'd help old ladies across the road. A big bloke, you know, you're not going to mess about with. But this fella knows, he's got a bit of a savvy up here and knows the law and knows it. And so if you do get a psychopath, mad axeman or somebody like that around, he'll know how to deal with it and get his chums along. But you pay for that. And I think it would work. And he doesn't,
exactly.
he doesn't law. And if he's useless, then you get another one.
I'm very interested in like what Stefan Molyneux calls dispute resolution organisations. This is like a hypothetical system that he envisioned for an anarchic society, which would be, it's exactly that. It's a way of resolving conflict, because there would still be conflict between people. That's a natural dialectic.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to result in punch-ups in the street. It can result. We can deal with it in a civilized manner, and it's in the interests of all people within that community to deal with it in that civilized manner. And a DRO would be, DROs could probably be set up everywhere for all kinds of reasons. And Molyneux actually has he wrote a book called Everyday Anarchy, which is all about that, and it's very interesting.
It's fascinating. Should we have a quick shifty in chat, because there's a load in there? Is it all right with you, fellas?
Treat yourself, mate.
Yeah, of course. Hello.
Okay, here we go. We got here Phil Howard says, under the Scient fiat system, I think it's current fiat system, CASG is the gun and the interest rates are the bullets. That's interesting. Very, very interesting. And Urban Fox is in. Hello.
Hope that's a good name.
You are all well. I'm watching from the back row with a nice pot of coffee and some cake. Oh, very nice.
Yeah,
very
cool.
Nice. Yes. And now, oh, by the way, I shouldn't say this, but I haven't got any. I haven't got shares in it, but Poundland are selling these posh Belgian biscuits. What they call the Lindor, yeah. They're selling packets of them for £1.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, and they're the ones that, you know, you have to raise a little finger, you know, when you eat them, and they're all posh people have, you know.
They're very nice. Yes.
Yeah, they're very yummy. Yeah. 230 plus. This is Pandora Chaser 2. Hello. 230 plus taxes in UK, in theory, according to Chris Coverdale.
I bet I pay more tax than both of you for one reason and one reason alone. Unless either of you do. I know you don't, Chris, and I don't think you do, Ben, but I smoke, mate. And tobacco is nearly £40 a pouch now. And about £35 of that is tax.
It's incredible, that. It's unbelievable.
It's insane, mate.
Yeah,
I used to get them for £2.50 when I started smoking.
Yeah,
I mean, it's 10 packs for like 80p.
Yeah, I mean, my mum smoked, and I went out she asked me to go buy some cigarettes, and she gave me like a £10 note, and I said, I don't need that much, do I? And she says, you do.
Yeah, that's not enough. They're 15 quid a packet, I think.
Yeah. God, the government, the government always justifying it by saying, oh, well, it's bad for you, isn't it? So we can charge you more money. Well, exactly. That's them. Firstly, you're right. That's them infantilizing us. You know, that's making people to do things like that is what you do to kids. Adults should be allowed to choose. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, if people say, well, but it costs the NHS more money, I said, well, you're paying more money into the exchequer. What's the problem?
I hate to think how much they've had offered me through the years. I mean, I've had periods in my life where I've been able to get baccy from a chap that you know, and it's nice and cheap. Somebody goes on holiday and brings back a car full. You know, that's helpful, but I haven't had that for years now. Really, I don't know anyone, so I have to get it from the shop and pay top whack. But it's sick. Yeah.
Well, apparently, nicotine is questionable because there's someone, I'm not saying myself, I've got to be careful because the old klaxons about to start off at YouTube. They're saying that the anti-smoking lobby was all fiddled.
They're just pushing it all.
I don't know. I remain open-minded.
I think they're probably far more harmful than tobacco. So they're vapes are far more prevalent now than smoking.
Horrible. I've got a mouthful. Someone's walking in front of me the other day, and there's I've got this mouthful come straight at me in the wind. It's awful.
You want some good wholesome smoke in your face instead, Chris?
Vapes, like, because like if someone's smoking, it just produces a little cloud of smoke. But vapes produce this cloud of steam, which is about 10 times bigger, and it's certainly indoors in a like on a. I mean, so I know some areas, some in shops have banned it and things like that. Because but in Cowley Centre, like this big shopping centre, they haven't banned it in the concourse, but it produces this huge cloud of steam, and it goes puffing everywhere, and it's like, and it almost smells of cherries and something else.
That's it.
I just think that's probably not doing
Oh,
anyone
mate,
any
that's
good.
got to be worse, I think, than just standard smoke. They mess Jess's chest up a treat. My wife's got COPD, and if anyone's using one of them near her, that it messes her up no end. So,
everything's bad for you nowadays. I mean, look at food. I mean, it's hard getting even decent food is
grow
like,
your own,
spend money. If you've got a window box, mate, you can grow
anything,
veg,
mate. Just do something. Even if friends of mine that haven't got gardens, like last year I gave them chili plants. Put it on your kitchen windowsill, grow some chilies for yourself. It's not just the consumption of it, it's the process. It's more in tune with who we are and what we're supposed to be doing. Growing and gathering your own food was always supposed to be a thing. Getting it from a supermarket in a plastic packet never was. Never.
Yeah.
And have you seen the state of vegetables? I went to the local supermarket the other day.
Mate.
Now, the Brussels sprouts, which I happen to like, were yellow and going black, and the cauliflower was yellow with black spots in it, and it wasn't reduced; it was top price. And I was thinking, who's going to buy this rubbish?
But the thing it's not the season, is it, for cauliflower now, mate? I mean, they're probably being grown under lamps indoors somewhere, or this is the problem as well. When you grow your own food, you eat with the seasons, and you're more in tune again with nature and where you're supposed to be. You shouldn't really eat anything out of a packet, I don't think. I mean, we all do it. I do it. But
everyone does it a bit. But I mean, some people do. I've seen them going through the aisles of the grocery shops with their trolley, and they're going all the pre-packaged stuff, all the microwave-ready meals, all the other prol slop that we're all encouraged to consume that goes in there. And when they want to go out, they go to McDonald's or they go to Greg's, and they have all that stuff. I mean, they're now talking officially about switching it to what they call insect biomass. Eating the bugs and being happy. Of course, but of course, Schwab won't be eating bugs. He'll still have the best blue cheese steak, won't he?
You should, Ben. Where I live right next door to the Sandringham estate. And that's not an exaggeration, mate. One of my customers' gardens backs onto the Sandringham estate. We quite frequently go into the woods in his garden and then walk up with his dogs straight into Sandringham Woods, mate. So we get a lot of insight into their way of doing things, mate. You should see, we used to have a local butcher in the village. He closed down recently, but before that he used to supply Sandringham with all their Christmas meat, mate. You should see the excess that goes just to that one house for that one family, the amount of food that is. And when Charles goes out hunting at Sandringham, he likes a special dish for him when he gets back. He likes Scotch whiskey with softly boiled eggs. So 20 minutes before he's due back, they start cooking a batch of 30 eggs for 3 minutes. Once that 3 minutes is up, he's not back. They go in the bin. They put another batch of 30 on. And this goes on for half an hour sometimes, mate, before he comes back. Yeah. So, like you say, the hypocrisy of them to suggest that we've got to eat insects to save the world, but the amount that they consume and waste, mate, it is absurd. They're on another freaking planet, mate. They really are. Yeah. And I don't think they're human. I really don't.
Honestly, I mean, maybe David Icke's right, and they're like some kind of evil reptile. I mean, I wouldn't surprise me. Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, they are different. I've worked and they have the ability to hypnotize. I do strongly believe this. They can hypnotize susceptible people. Yeah. I worked in an office where this absolute psycho walked in, and quite nice people would suddenly become absolutely evil when this fellow was around. You know, they go back to being normal. But when he was around, you think, what's wrong with these people? And there are psychos. I mean, when you look at it, these bloodthirsty get into control. How do they get there? And they get people to carry out terrible things. Look at Stalin. Was it something like 60 million people were killed? 60 to 100 million people.
So they say, don't they? Who knows?
Yeah. You just don't know.
Like, we talked about this, Chris. Do you remember? It was a couple of years ago. We did a show, we did a whole show about this, and I think it's true. There's some people who have that kind of ability, and you got to wonder why the world is no one wants the world to be like this. No one wants this kind of hypocrisy.
Nobody's
double
sane,
standards.
would they, Ben? Nobody with an ounce of sanity would want it like this.
Yeah.
And the definition of a psychopath, you would suggest that insanity would be in that definition, wouldn't you? So, but it suits them. This is the thing. The crapper the world is for us, the better it is for them, because they feed off of our low vibration, mate. They literally, it's fuel. It's fuel to them. And this is why you've got to do as much as you can to keep your vibrational field up, because when you're in a low vibrational field, when you're scared, depressed, anxious, whatever, that is when you are literally feeding them and giving them everything that they want and everything that they need. You know,
there's no other explanation to when you consider their behavior about it's the excess. It goes beyond just the necessities and the pragmatic means of control. It goes beyond that.
Yes,
it goes to almost.
It's demonic, mate.
It's been described as pornographic almost. The evil is almost at a pornographic level.
Well, one of my relatives, I think, I say relatives, he married into the family. He was a psychopath, and he would get pleasure out of creating stress and tension. Absolutely pleasure. It was happiness to him to have people sort of stressed out of their minds and people shouting and being irritable with each other. He loved it.
That
and if it wasn't like
what I said, Chris, doesn't it? That he's feeding off of low vibrational energy. He's feeding off of that. You know, it is fuel for people like that. Weren't we doing comments?
Yes, let's have a quick look.
Sorry.
No,
carried away. Ancient Ruby, it's all control. That's right.
It's Ruby,
and we've got police are being made private, just like NHS. I think they already are, aren't they? And then we got legal tender. This is Sean Hamer.
Hello, Sean.
Tender for law, which is voluntary contractual policy.
Do you know what, Sean? Your messages make my brain hurt sometimes,
which is
mate.
voluntary
think about
contractual policy. Well, I thought that legal tender was more efficient. It's better than barter, isn't it? Really, it's just a method, i.e., consent.
Right.
Do you remember when Piers Morgan went into that supermarket, a cashless supermarket, and he insisted on buying for a pack of strawberries with cash? And he left the money on the help desk and walked out, and they were telling him to come back. And he says, "No, I paid for them, but we don't accept cash." He says, "You can't call the police. I'm not stealing them." And he had used legal tender in that case. And
I think that only works for things that like, so for example, if you went and filled your car up with petrol and then went to pay and they told you they didn't take cash and all you had was cash, I think that might work. With what he's done there, I think that's a stunt, because I think they're entitled to refuse the transaction on the grounds that they don't take cash. I think they're legally entitled to do that, and they could actually potentially have him there. I might be wrong. I quite often am, but I thought that
contract, isn't it,
for goods and services already rendered, and I don't think that's, because there's no contract. You know, you could say, well, look, we don't take cash, and no, you can't have them. So I don't know.
Breach of contract? That could be breach of contract.
I don't know.
Because when you go into a shop, you're entering into a contract, aren't you?
Mate, that sounds like just a typical Morgan stunt to me. I have no time for Piers Morgan. He's as much a part of the problem.
Corbyn, I said Morgan, sorry, Corbyn.
Piers Corbyn.
I mustn't get those. No, what an insult! I mustn't. Oh my God, I'm sorry. I mustn't get those two mixed up.
He shot himself in the foot as well.
I was sorry. Yes, Piers. I remember that. Yeah, it was on YouTube.
Not Piers Morgan. God, you couldn't imagine them two more different guys.
No, but Corbyn shot himself in the foot, Ben, didn't he?
I don't know what happened. The aftermath was. What happened to him?
It was dodgy. It was shaky, mate. I mean, he claims that I was, because I used to watch a bit of what he did. I watched his mayoral campaign with interest. I've listened to him on the wireless a few times. He's an interesting man. But I think he got a little bit, he started to believe his own hype. And I think he he thought he was perhaps a bit more popular than he was. And he made in my opinion, he made a big mistake by just engaging with people that were offering him the kind of money they were offering him. And they were offering him this money on the pretense that if he did talk about the medicine, he would only mention he wouldn't mention one of the medicine companies that were making the medicine, if that makes sense. Yeah. So I called him again. It's sad, but I'm afraid whatever credibility he had for me is quite tainted by what he did. And
he became showbiz, though, doesn't he? He became a celebrity.
He started to be more about him than the actual things that he was supposedly campaigning for. I mean, he was a character, and I think that the man probably is a decent man with integrity, but he made an error of judgment, in my opinion. You should never engage. As soon as people start saying, "Look, we'll give you this money, but we don't want you to mention this," that to me is, you shut the conversation down.
Well, you smell a rat, wouldn't you? Because politicians are very gullible.
I'm not going to be a part of that.
You've got to be wary, because this happened several times actually, but the worst example was that these people called Off the Fence Productions contacted me and asked me to be in a documentary they were doing for the BBC. And they asked me to audition, and I wrote back to them and said, "Oh, right, can you tell me what this is about exactly?" And they said, we want to create an interesting, original, and vibrant new look at the world of conspiracy theory belief, and we thought you'd be a good person to take part. And I said, okay, so can we enter into negotiations where I get given some editorial control? And they said, I'm afraid that wouldn't be an option. I thought, oh god. Anyway, at the end, I said, no, I'm not doing this. Not a chance. And when I saw the program, I was bloody glad, because it was horrific. There were 2 programs that I might have been on. I don't know which one it was, but they were horrific. They were horrific, deceitful, deceptive hit pieces.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't piss on the BBC.
Hall had very similar, didn't he?
Like the ones
that approached him at one time, didn't they? And he said, Richard D. Hall. They approached him for a document. I think may have been the same documentary, and he said no. He said, if I've got no editorial control.
Oh, they asked him for a lot of them, but it was of course well, they didn't. Most recently, Miss Mariana Trench, fathomless bits of deceit and propaganda. She wouldn't take no for an answer, would she?
No.
And that horrible Radio 4 thing she did, the disaster trolls, which was it was so bad, even by their standards. That was horrific. And attacking Richard like that. Richard's a tough old cookie, though. He stood his ground.
See, Mariana Springs' credibility has gone out of the window anyway, because she lied on her CV when she was applying for I think either the job she's got now or another job. But again, she's a disinformation reporter, and she's all peddling her own disinformation. Anyone who lies on their CV, as far as I'm concerned, has got no credibility left, because if you're going to lie to get yourself a job, then you're probably going to lie even more when you've got the job to keep the job. And if they tell you to lie, you're just going to keep lying, because you've already proven you're comfortable with it, because you lied in your CV.
But then again, maybe that's the idea. Maybe you could say she was a bit overqualified.
Maybe that's why they took her on, mate.
They probably just thought, she's perfect. You got the job, Mariana. Yeah. You're just great for us.
Yeah, you're full of shit.
What we're talking about, because we've got to be careful, because what happened with Richard D. Hall in the hearing, and what we talked about before coming on air, we decided we could talk about it on BitChute and Rumble, but not so necessarily on YouTube.
Well, I'll say this much: I went to the hearing. I mean, I don't actually know much more than was published anyway, and then a transcript has been published of the hearing. But Richard was in court because some people are suing him for harassment, strangely enough, and not for libel, for harassment. And there's a reason why they've chosen harassment. If they try to sue him for libel, they would then be compelled to allow him to plead fair comment, which means he could present his evidence against these claimants at the hearing, at the actual main trial. What's happened instead is the trial hasn't even started, but there was a preliminary hearing a couple of weeks ago, which I attended, and I was in the public gallery just to decide the rules of the trial, essentially. And the claimants said that they wanted a situation where Richard was banned from presenting any of his evidence that he's gathered against them, against what they are claiming in public. And unfortunately, it was very predictably, the judge ruled in their favor, which means when the trial happens, it is going to be Richard's basically going to have to defend this harassment charge under the proviso in the trial that the claimants are telling the truth about their experience, which he questions. And this is unfortunately this was bound to happen. But I mean, it's interesting. Richard has taken a very different tactic to Alex Jones, because Alex Jones was sued for a massive amount of money, a record-breaking amount of money in the United States a couple of months ago, for saying that the parents of the kids at Shady Nook, shall we call it, a school, were lying about their experiences, and they sued him, and they got like over $1 billion or something from him, which is record breaking. And I said at the time, they're gonna export this. This is going to be done in other countries. I thought they'd pick on David Icke, maybe. They chose Richard D. Hall.
Ben, can I interject just quickly?
Sure.
Just briefly, my friend. Like with the what you just mentioned about Jones and yeah, that place. And mate, I don't know. I think I'm not sure about Jones. I'm really not. And I think that whole thing was pantomime, mate.
Maybe. I mean,
really
one thing's for certain, that Alex, the moment he was in the dock, he just caved in. He apologized. He took the knee. He apologized again, and he apologized, and he backtracked on everything. But where did it get him? All that groveling did absolutely no good at all. Now,
exactly that, mate. Yeah. So why would he do it if he was what he claimed to be and was a principled man? And he clearly believed that at some point, because he was peddling it on InfoWars and telling people that was the way it was. I don't know, mate. I wasn't there, so I really don't know either way. And that's my take on most things. I can't say. I don't know what's shit and what's shite, mate. I really don't anymore. So,
but one thing I do know, Richard's taken a very different tactic, and I think he's made the right decision. He has not backed down. He's running at him. He's basically saying he's sticking by his guns. And I know that fortune favors the bold, and so hopefully, I think if Richard can pull something out of the bag that Alex couldn't, I hope he will. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen, but this is it's a musical farce what's going on here. And it should, if anything, if anyone's watching this and they've not for the first time, surely you must realize that if the government and the judiciary are cracking down to this level against a guy simply for expressing an opinion, for doing some investigative journalism, there must be some truth to it. There must be something solid behind the murk. And simply saying, well, he's a nutcase, he doesn't know what he's talking about, it's all nonsense, he's talking rubbish. That doesn't wash anymore. It doesn't wash. Something is going on, and there's some truth behind this. So hopefully this will backfire on the bad guys, like everything seems to be backfiring on them. And maybe enough people will wake up to hit some kind of critical mass for real change to take place. If this could be the 100th monkey, I don't know. Fingers crossed.
I honestly don't know enough about it to really give you any kind of opinion, chaps. I'm afraid. I've seen a few things that he's done in the past. It wasn't really my thing, so I just moved on and looked at something else. But I don't know enough. I'm afraid. I really don't. I can't really give you any kind of sound opinion. I wouldn't want to comment on something without knowing anything about what's going on. But obviously, Ben, you are much better informed than I am, and I think Chris, you probably are as well.
Well, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but I mean, I've sort of like looked into this, and I've followed Richard for a long time, his own work. I'm actually on 2 of his shows, and he was on one of mine. And I really do think that if it's becoming to the point where it's no longer kind of abstract. It's no longer just theoretical. And this is something I realized back in 2006 when the school, my daughter's school, tried to take her fingerprints. That's what really radicalized me, I can tell you. That's when I set up Hapanwo. because I realised like this was up till then it had been a bit of almost a piece of entertainment for me. Really, I hadn't really connected it to reality. It'd been something I had took an interest in almost as a sideline. And then suddenly my daughter comes home from school and says the school want to take my fingerprints. They weren't going to ask us. They weren't going to ask the parents. They just announced in the school magazine on page 16 that they were going to create a database of the children's fingerprints for the school library. And I was furious about this. I went to the school and I told them then on no account must they do this. I mean, if it had been now, I'd have just simply taken her out of school and I'd have homeschooled her.
Yeah, I don't have children, Ben, but if I did, there was absolutely no way that they would have been going to school.
Yeah, if she was a kid now, I mean, she's grown up now. She's almost 30. But if she was a kid now, I would never let her near any bloody school. Never. I mean, my school's bad enough. I mean, my school's bad enough, and that was years ago. But
Chris, I'm going to whip you into shape. There's some people in chat that you should probably say hello to, mate.
I agree with you there. And I'll tell you something very quickly. Going back to what we were saying earlier, if we paid to have tutors teaching our own children, I haven't got any children, and those teachers were teaching your children, I don't know, about all the kinky stuff that's going on now, they'd be out on their they wouldn't get away with it. They'd be out. That's it, you know.
They get to hiding, mate.
That's right.
Yeah, this is no way I'd expose my child to that. Never. I never let them near my child.
Chris is correct regards the cash in the shop situation and the law. I read up on this only recently. And there's Robert. Hello, mate. How you going? All right.
Hey, Robert.
I bet you're working bloody hard. I know that. You're up to your neck in it. I do hope that let's put it this way. I hope it's an even kill, as they say, so that you know you're not working that hard, but you're doing okay. And now we got here during the film Diana was recorded in our area, and we saw them at Lestrange.
That's the Lestrange. I think she's talking about the Lestrange Arms, which is a pub, or it's also an area. Hunston, the little town up the road from me, it was created by a chap called Henry Lestrange. So he made it. It's a Victorian coastal resort, and it was nothing pretty much before. There was a little village which is now called.
You mean Hunstanton? Hunstanton.
Chris. It's Hunston.
Oh, Hunston.
It's Hunston, mate. Yeah, no, it's only Hunstanton to people who don't. It's Hunston, mate. Or
a bit further south, you see.
Sorry?
I'm a bit further south. It's a bit like my granddad used to say, I went down to Odgeston. And we used to say, no, it's Hoddesdon. No, it's Odgeston. And after he died, my family found out it used to be called Odgeston. So it was right. We were wrong.
You've got 3 villages in a row. You've got the one I live in, Dersenham. Then you've got Inglesfort, and then Snetsham. But they're all spelled different to how they're actually pronounced. And that's a very Norfolk thing, mate. We've got a place in Norfolk called Haysborough, but it's spelled Happisburgh. And there's another place that's spelled Wymundum, but it's pronounced Wyndham. And that is a very Norfolk thing, mate, to have villages that are spelt it's just to baffle all you foreigners when you come here.
Well, that's not. Yeah, but I mean, you've got Waltham Cross now, known as Waltham Cross, but locals know it as a shithole. See, so we sort of pronounce it differently down here.
Not quite the same, mate. But,
I'm glad you in Norfolk have a sensible policy for removing immigrants, unlike the rest of the country. And you can test them by seeing if they can pronounce the place names, and then you can sort of send them back where they came from.
They wouldn't survive round here, mate. They wouldn't. Do you remember, you guys, just very quickly, tangent, you remember Tony Martin, the farmer from Norfolk, who,
he shot a gypsy, didn't he?
Yeah. He shot two, mate. Killed one, shot 2. Yeah. That's not far from us. That's Emneth, which is half an hour in the car maximum from where I live. But for years and years afterwards, because I used to be heavily into football, Norwich City fan, used to season ticket holder, go to all the games, away games as well. And for years after that, the chant that we used to give to other teams was, "We shoot burglars, yeah, we shoot burglars. We shoot burglars, yeah, we shoot burglars." And But Norfolk is a bit, a bit different mate, to the rest of the country.
Does that cook look support Norfolk? She was a famous television cook.
Delia
Smith. Is she still alive, or is she?
Yeah, I don't, because I don't have anything to do with football anymore, mate. That's bread and circuses, and fell out of love with football a while ago. But I don't know if she's still involved with the club. But yeah, we used to call her embarrassing, aren't we? Mate, she came out at half time absolutely Schindler's once, and it made it on all the news.
I remember that, yeah.
Oh, I was there, mate.
She was really, really out of it.
I was at the game. It was embarrassing.
I'll tell you something interesting about the Martin case. That's an example when you were... Hello, Hatchie. How you doing, mate? All right. This is where I talked earlier about Morgoth's review and his Power and Its Clients article in the video. Tony Martin was a good example of a criminal who was not part of the Power, was not a client of Power. He had done something. See, he had done something that probably anyone would do if they experienced the provocation that he had done. He had experienced, and the non-reaction from the authorities for dealing with it. And
the trouble was, Ben, the problem was with that case was that he shot the guy in the back.
Yeah, he should have pleaded extreme provocation rather than self-defense. I know. Yeah. But I mean, to be honest, I mean, if you know, I would say that was extreme provocation, and it just pushed him over the edge, because there is a level of provocation by which anyone would do something like that. And,
mate, I'm sorry, you break into anyone's house that isn't yours. I'm sorry, mate. You deserve whatever you fucking get.
Exactly.
You really do.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. End of it, my book.
But in any circumstances,
in my house, mate, you're going to get it.
Yeah, in any of those circumstances, what would happen is that the state would come down harder on the homeowner than the burglar, because it's to do with that's not a useful crime. You see,
no, I know.
And you see the same thing in the United States with like the Trayvon Martin case, where a guy on a neighborhood watch guy shot a man who was behaving in a violent criminal way, and he ended up in court. I mean, he was acquitted, but that shouldn't have even gone to trial.
Well, look at the I won't say his name, but do you remember during the BLM riots, I'll say his first name, Kyle, the guy who was attacked and shot two or three people he killed in self-defense?
He killed a guy, and he injured I know he injured one guy.
I think,
he maybe, yeah, but he certainly, he
certainly killed one.
They were armed and they were attacking him, and so he.
And mate, there was because I saw the live stream of it when it happened. I saw the guys being shot on YouTube and that, mate. And there was never a clearer case of self-defense, but they went for him, didn't they?
They had to go for this ridiculous trial. Yeah, I mean, I know he was acquitted, but he's put through months of nightmare, and he was held on remand.
And he got death threats and all kinds of nonsense. But it was clear cut. I would have done the same thing in his situation. You come at me and you're armed and I'm armed, you're going to get it before I do.
I suspect it's only because the jury was fully sequestered that he actually got a fair trial. Because in the case of Derek Chauvin, the guy who shot old fentanyl guy, I won't mention his name.
Oh yeah.
The jury was. I mean, I hope he'll get out on appeal.
They worked together.
The jury was not sequestered, which meant the jury was they found the thugs found out who they were, the BLM thugs, and they threatened them, and they said you've got to return a guilty verdict, or we'll go after your kids and stuff like that. And the judge had blood poured over his, had a bucket of blood poured over his front. I mean, there's no way you can get a fair trial in that situation. But you see, this is an example. This is what Morgoth meant when he talks about the young girl who just happened to make a joke about this policewoman. Said, "Oh, you look like my lesbian grandmother," or something. And they sent a van round to arrest her. 5 officers dragging her out, and it's like it's either that or they're on pride parades, and it just these sort of things they illuminate the situation like a bolt of lightning. The real role that these forces of law and order supposedly play, the real purpose of them. They're not there to protect us. If they were protecting us,
you look at any of the channels on YouTube. I mean, I can think of a couple. There's Police Abusing Powers and Crime Bodge are the two that spring to mind with me. But you look at the amount of crap that those chaps have had to put up with from the police simply because they've got channels exposing wrongdoing by the police, and you look at how much shit those two. I mean, the guy Rob from Crime Bodge was pre-nonsense. This was, but I think it was Derbyshire or Nottinghamshire. I can't remember, one of the two. Police they went for him in a town centre, and they literally, because he wouldn't stop for a PCSO, because they don't have the right to stop you. They do not have the power to detain unless they have a special warrant card to say that they can. PCSOs can't detain you. And this PCSO tried to detain him. He refused. And he said, go and get a proper copper and I'll stop and speak to him. But you don't have the power to detain me. And they cars screaming in to get him. Bloke jumps out the car, throws him up against the wall and starts abusing him. And, you know, it's like, isn't it? You know, if you want to know who's in charge, I guess look at who you can't criticize. But the police have got a monopoly, haven't they, already, of shutting down people that criticize them. And this is the problem with everything being online, is they've got everything because you're online, so they know everything about you.
Well, the online world is a double-edged sword because it can do a lot of good. I mean, my website, the Hapanwo website, if I'd lived a couple of generations earlier, I'd have had to produce a newsletter, which would probably not have reached as big a circulation. But at the same time, it means that now someone can learn almost anything they want about me. They all have to do is Google my name and everything's there. I mean, I don't think I've got anything to hide personally. I've got nothing. Oh, I mean, but people have dug up stuff about my personal life. Trolls, you know, I have been targeted by trolls, which is not the end of the world. I'm a big, ugly ex-hospital porter, you know, they have been after people far more vulnerable than I, but it's just the nastiness of them. They found out things about my medical history, things like that. They found out things about my mother and what she did, because I had a terrible situation. My mother basically was reporting me to social workers and things like this, and I almost had my daughter taken into care at one point because of her deception.
Jesus, mate, I'm sorry about that.
Thanks. It's I mean, but they found out about this. I mean, God knows how. But they dug this up and they started publishing it about me.
That's the trouble, mate, with everything being in a digital format, is the fact that there are people who can access things. I mean, I remember when I was doing my A-levels, one of my friends at sixth form, his job of an evening was to go to the local hospital and convert the paper records to computer, putting them onto computer records. That was his part-time gig when he was doing his A-levels. He used to go about 4 nights a week, do 4 hours, I think, from 5 p.m. till 9, just putting all these records online. Now, how many people that would, you know, that were doing that all over the country? Now, the chances are that they weren't all going to be honest, were they? So that process in itself would have opened up, I think, a lot of kind of potential data breaches. But then the trouble is, once you've got it all online, if you're smart enough, you can find anything, can't you?
Yeah, this is. But Rob says here, Rob Holyoke says the trolls were probably someone close to you, right? One of them, I know the leader of the team, Team Droid, was somebody I'd met. I didn't know who he was, but I had met him. Yes, I had met him at. I was a member of the original David Icke Forum, and we had a meetup, and he turned up at that, and he actually turned up at 2 meetups when I was there. I didn't know who he was, but yeah, I did know him.
Well, the thing is that there's a lot of mental illness around because these trolls are mentally ill. I mean, you can go on to YouTube any day and you'll see there's a girl who said she's a dog. She wants to be a dog, and she goes woof, and she's talking. Well, the fact of the matter is that person has got a mental illness, because when you're a child, children imagine they're all kinds of things, Batman, Superman, or whatever. That's a childish phase they go through. But these people have got some childish phrase that is still in their minds. These people think they, you know.
I'll be careful how I say it, Chris, but 30 years ago, we would have accepted that anybody who was, how can I say this without being like, anybody who thought that they might be in the wrong body, we would accept that that was called gender dysphoria and that was a mental illness.
Yes.
We would accept that. Society, everybody would have just accepted that. Now, not so much. You know?
Yeah, this has now become. It used to be something very rare. See, transsexualism used to be a very rare thing. I mean, I've got a friend actually who was. She wrote a book, Claire Ray Randall. She wrote a book called The War on Gender. It's very good book. She actually was one of the first generation of trans people. But it was literally like only a handful of them in the group she was a member of, and the actual decision to have surgery and things like that was always like a last ditch. So it was only done when you were a mature adult and you had to have like You have to really know what you're doing. Now they're saying for children, if you call your child by that pronoun, you're abusing them. And this could be a child who's preteen or something like this, because he put on his mother's dress or something. Or it's just,
kids do stuff like that, though, don't they? Kids are curious. They experiment. The thing you do is you satisfy their curiosity as and when they ask. You don't need to fill their head with a load of crap when they're 4 years old.
Well, I know what you mean, because you see, I've decided to announce that I am bullshit title fluid. You see, so I wake up in the morning being bullshit title fluid. His Royal Highness, I'll be in the morning, and in the afternoon I might be Sir. You never know. And then I this is the reason I'm all done up tonight, because I thought I might be flying off as a kite tonight. See, that is bullshit title fluidity. You see, so
why not?
Why not?
That's the perfect title for a professional consultant twatologist.
Yes, it's a twatology. But what's happening in this country is it started, I think, about 30 years ago, 40 years ago. There's a chap called Harvey Jones. He's dead now, and he was going round showing companies how to make a profit. And there was a lovely little company that made apple juice, and they took his advice. And when they went to see him again, they said, "Sorry, no, we went back to the way we were doing things." Because what these people do is there's a breed of really, I would say, psychopath, aggressive people who go into companies, and all they do is the same formula all the way around. They won't know a thing about what the company's about. They'll make mass redundancies, fire everybody, and then they'll subcontract people in, and then they'll have a massive PR department. So, for example, if there were house builders, they would subcontract, and they realise on site you can't have, site management is expensive, so you have the minimal site management. You subcontract people in, so they do all crappy work, and then when people move into these crappy houses, they'll deal with this PR firm, which is customer care and things like that, to literally bullshit the people. And all right, they might not get away with it every time, but they'll get away with it most of the time. And these kind of what they call company people are absolutely destroying industry in this country. And they've destroyed the NHS. They've got into councils, they've got into government, they're into everything. And they're people that are not qualified in what they're doing. They are twatologists. They are real twats.
Chris, I've got to pull you back when you said about subcontractors doing a crap job. I was a subcontractor. It's not all of us. It's the specification a lot of the time, mate.
I was a subby as well. I was a subby.
Don't you tar us all with the same brush?
No,
mate.
not tarring.
I was a subby. I did my best with what I was given to do at the time, mate. A lot of the time, it's the specs, though, isn't it? It's what you're told. It's not the subbies. They know it's bullshit, and they'll quite often argue with a foreman and say, "Look, this is crap. What are you doing here?" But you just at the end of the day, you want your money, you get on and do it.
Let me reword this. What I really mean is that the company, not the actual subbies themselves.
Yeah,
for example, you'll have normally it would take an hour to do something, and they cut it down to half an hour.
Of course they do.
And if you can't do it, they get somebody else in that can. Now,
and they'll find a cheaper bit of plasterboard than the one that they know is good. Right. They'll put something else in that they know is rubbish, but it's cheaper. So,
correct. Well, in architecture, housing, you try not to get into it because you are given an hour to do something that would normally take a day, and if you can't do it, they get somebody else that can. So you just ink slapping, that's done, and sort it out on site, and that's the way it is. So I wasn't attacking the actual subby.
No, I know you were.
You're a subby, but I'm talking about the actual. And this is the trouble from this top management down. They just cut everything down. And you look at the crap that you're buying. Something that's made in Britain used to be good quality. Now it's crap.
Anywhere though, mate. That's not just Britain. That's just everything that's manufactured because it's in the design that it will break at some point, so that you have to buy another one.
That's right.
Nothing's built to last anymore.
I bought.
Yeah, that's intentional.
Yeah, it is. Built-in obsolescence.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, I'll give you an example. I've got a bike which is about 30, 40 years old, and you change gear by the, down low, and that it's made in Europe. All of it is made in Europe. It's got French parts in it. It's a rally. It's absolutely solid. It's a really good bike. It's a racing bike. I've got one that's made, say, about 10 years old. Excuse my language. It's crap. It really is. Yeah. The build quality is completely different, But on with the chat room, we got here.
Well, I'm impressed with that. You brought yourself back into line there, Chris.
Really? Yes.
Yeah. We tangented off and wandered off, and without any
straight back.
Anyone else, you were straight back in the chat.
Hit pieces
good work.
Is. This is an interesting one. Hit pieces is all the mainstream media do. They've been jailed Islamic DVD seller in London using footage of paintballing that the Channel 4 documentary paid for and sent them on. Later used in courts as training. Yes, that's interesting.
Oh, doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me at all.
Nothing surprises me, Ben.
That's it.
I mean,
now we've got Ancient Ruby says, sadly, there are more disinformation informers on all media now, including YouTube, to misguide people, and are in chats for future reference collections. Chats for future reference.
I'm not sure I understand the last bit there, Chris, but
no,
I don't get that with the first bit.
No, that's it. We got a moment to it's all a stage pantomime. I'm having to skip quite a few in chat. I'm sorry about this. Nothing personal. I agree with Chris, the gardener. Alex Jones' debacle was panto. Yes.
I think so, mate. I don't know, do I? I don't know anything, mate. I just have opinions, but I just think anything. If it's on the MSM, don't pay any attention to it. It's where they want you to look.
That's right.
Look somewhere else. But it was like when they had that stupid submarine rubbish going on last year. What was coming out then that was so important that you needed to be distracted by a week by 4 billionaires that had gone missing playing in a submarine? It was ridiculous, mate.
Whenever these things happen, it's always worth looking behind this. Look, whenever you see a big sensation on page one, see what's on page 6 or 7. Because it could be the page one is designed to knock it back.
Push you. Like you say, front page news is what they want you to look at. Never look where they're trying to push you.
Mark Anthony has come up with a good one here. I'm not convinced that Jones was sued. I believe he was compromised.
Spot on, Mark. That's how I see it, mate. I don't know. Did you see his interview with Ike recently that he did last week?
Did he?
Last time I saw an interview, they were at each other's throats.
Well, that was kind of where they were. Alex took exception, I think, because David accused him of being part of what he calls the mainstream alternative media. And so Alex eventually agreed to go on and speak. But the thing with David is, I don't think there's anything personal with David. He just says what he sees and how he sees things. It's not personal. He just tells you what he sees. And I'm with whoever put the comment up. I've forgotten now, mate. But I'm with them. I think Jones was compromised a long time ago, and I think that whole incident, let's call it that, was just about obfuscation and look the other way, look over here. And while that was going on, something else was probably far more important that we should have been paying attention to. Just sailed past us. And
misdirection. It's misdirection. Yeah. And I think Jones
does, doesn't they? The magician's sleight of hand.
Yes,
they can distract you.
Remember the late great Dave Starbuck? He was a
good old Dave.
Yeah, good old Dave. He's passed away. But he said to me, he did a comedy illusionist act or magician's act, and there's a big difference between a magician and an illusionist. He was an illusionist, and he said the government uses the same techniques that he used. It's just Mariana Spring. That sounds like a place you go on holiday to. Where are you going to? I'm going to Mariana Spring.
Las Vegas.
Yes, it's really good there. It's in Florida, Mariana Spring. Let's let myself. that she was approached before leaving university by the BBC. She was also given her current position unofficially at the start of 2020.
More than likely, Fox.
She may well have been approached by like security services as well. For example, Jon Snow once reported that that when he was at Channel 4 News, someone actually said to him, he was approached by someone he was sure was a part of MI5, although they didn't tell him.
Mate, Jon Snow probably
they asked him
part of MI5.
I mean, I don't like the guy. I don't like the way he goes on about. Oh, there's so many white people here. Do you remember that comment he made about the Brexit protest? Oh, I've never seen so many white people.
I've not paid any attention to that dickhead for a long time, mate.
But he, supposing what he did say. I mean, I'm not saying I believe him or I trust him any more than you do, but he said, they offered me like to double my salary, give it cash tax free if I just do what they wanted. And he said no, apparently. Maybe.
Right. Well, my take on that, Ben, would be if that was true, and then he started going out and blowing the whistle and telling everyone, there'd be some kind of consequence for him there. I think he probably just said that to try and put people off the scent.
Yeah.
He's a scumbag. And
I can't stand his son.
Part of the problem. Sorry, mate.
I can't stand his son, who's supposed to be a historian.
Is his son? Oh, is it? What's this?
Sorry.
Yeah,
because they do things do run in families, don't they? These
Dan Snow,
families.
Chris? Dan
Sorry?
Snow? Dan
yes.
Snow? Yeah, he's a scumbag as well.
He looks at all the history books, and that must be right because people of high rank wrote it who were never anywhere near the battlefield or anywhere near there.
His story.
Precisely. It's about like us writing a book about the conflict in Russia and Ukraine, and we ain't been there. But you sort of, but it's I don't know. But anyway, we got Richard Chambers. Sorry, he's going to say something, Ben.
I was going to say that when Jon Snow got sacked from the BBC, I tweeted, "I've never seen so few Jon Snows in the same TV studio." Because what he said about white people.
Richard Vobe's channel on YouTube. To reduce your tax burden. Yes,
I like Richard.
Yeah, I know Richard, not personally, but I know.
I like his channel. Yeah.
He does come across very well.
Go to ID. Yes, Pippa King. I remember her. She contacted me back in 2006 when all this happened with my daughter. Yeah.
And what's this? Pandora chases NO2.
No to ID.
No to ID. Sorry. Fight the school biometrics. Years ago, and yes, they snuck it all back in again without parental permission. And Louise has come up with a good one. My daughter's school tried the fingerprints for school dinners. I told them no chance and took her out of school just before the make-believe lurgy hit. I taught her through a GCSE.
Well done, Louise.
Yeah,
hey!
That's good parenting. That is good parenting. That is
well done.
That really is.
Now, Louise has stood up for me now. I say Hunstanton, but I'm from West London originally, so I pronounce the A in the middle, Hunstanton.
No.
It's
How long have you lived up here, Louise? If you've been here more than 30 years, we might accept you as one of our own. But if it's less than 30 years, you've got no chance. You're still a foreigner. So, but Louise, how can you do this to me? It's hunting.
I lived in Mneth. Well, sorry,
wow.
When Tony Martin killed Fred Barras. Tony Martin Barras and him as well. Threatened my boys when they were young because they cut across his field.
Of course he did. He's a farmer. Get her off my land. You be worrying my sheep.
Yes. How are you, Ben?
Not bad, thanks, Hatchie. Good to see you, mate.
That's it. It says here, Rob Olio. Hello, Rob. He got a life sentence overturned and received 5 years.
He did. Yeah.
Do you remember that bloke?
3.5.
Was it 20, 30 years ago? I think it was in Yorkshire or somewhere up north. And he built this house where he shouldn't have built it. He had
in the hay bales.
This official. I shouldn't laugh, but where I was working at the time,
They made him knock it down, though, didn't they?
No, what happened?
Didn't they?
No, what happens is this official came along with the council, and he's a bit like a padre, you know, when a padre reads the sort of an army, blah 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 blah. He said, "Under law, such and such and such and such and stuff." And this bloke got this gun out, went, "If you come on my land, I will shoot you." And this bloke, for the
we need
council,
more of that, Chris.
Yep,
shot him.
We need more of that.
But this bloke from the council was a typical civil service, no personality, anything like that. And when I was working, we all went, it's looking in the phone. Shouldn't be like that. It's wrong to kill people. That's wrong.
It is, but just threaten to kill them. You don't have to kill them. Just threaten to kill them. I
mean, this bloke had actually had a lot from the council. He'd taken as much as he could stand. That it says here, Mark Anthony says, I agree, CTG, when you cross the threshold of someone's property, all your rights disappear. In America, I think it's in Texas, they have on the front of their houses, all callers will be met with an armed response. So if, a bloke from the parcel delivery knocks on the door, a postman does, someone comes around the corner with a gun.
Mate, I can't have a gun, unfortunately, but I've got a nice heavy piece of wood beside the bed, and I'm telling you now, you break into my house, I will protect what's mine, my wife, my dogs, my cats, my property, and I will batter you to death before I stop, because if you've come through my door, you're a direct threat to my existence on this earth. So you're going to get battered to death before me. And I'm pretty sure that there's enough rage inside of me that I would carry that through, mate. That's one thing that I cannot. I'm lucky. I've never been burgled, mate. I've never had it, but it is. They are the lowest of the low, mate. But people who break into people's space, take their things, it's violation on so many levels, mate. I'm sorry, if you're that kind of person and you're coming in here, you're going to get all I can give you, and I might not win, but I'll certainly cause you some harm before you take me out.
Because if someone's breaking in, obviously, if they're breaking into your house, they must have hostile intentions. Otherwise, they'd knock on the door, ring the bell.
Yeah, exactly.
What are you supposed to do? Just, I've heard people say in court when they're prosecuting these people who defend their homes, well, you didn't know what their intentions were. How did you know they were burglars? They break in, they smash a window at 1 a.m.
Yeah.
What do you think they're there for? They're entering your house illicitly and secretly without your knowledge. Once you're in there, you don't know what they're going to do.
Exactly.
You don't know what harm they might do to your property, to you or your person or your family.
I think most of us would like a Clint Eastwood moment. Go ahead, punk. Make my day.
Yeah.
It would go straight to violence, mate. It really would. There would be no words from me. It would just go straight into violence, I'm afraid. And that's the only time that I would. Is that if somebody come in and threatened me in my space, then any other situation, I'd try and have a conversation. But you've left me with no option. You're in my house. You're gonna get hurt.
I actually believe when someone does go over your threshold, then you have every right to defend your castle. That's it. I'm not into violence like that, but that's what it should be.
No,
they've got very little rights.
No. But you've put me in a situation where I'm scared for my existence, and I think more importantly than myself, the things that I cherish, my wife and my pets.
Look what happens in Harlow, in Essex. Sorry, carry on, Ben. Sorry, I was going
to say it's a sign of the times how it's changed with that infinitely quotable film with Clint Eastwood, and the fact that in that movie he's actually a hero, though he breaks the rules. He's a policeman who will literally go against the rules because the rules are holding him back and preventing him doing his job. Whereas nowadays, it's usually the other way. With the police these days, they don't. I mean, the police we've been talking about today, they would never do that. They would obey the orders and sod the bad guys, let the bad guys go. But Clint, his character in that film, What's that film called again? What's the title? I can't even remember the
Was it
title.
Dirty Harry, wasn't it?
Dirty Harry, yeah.
Yeah.
Dirty Harry.
Dirty Harry.
He's a guy. I mean, despite the fact he's this very, very rough and violent guy, he's a good guy. He is like he's the hero, because he actually does what is right when his authorities don't. And so this is why I love that infinitely quotable movie. It's really good.
It is good, but the strange thing is, you see, when I was brought up very much a pacifist, I was very anti-gun, and I've gone completely the other way now, because when you look around the world, states in America that have loose gun laws, they are the least violent and they're the less crime, because a criminal knows if they break into a house, they're going to get shall we say, a piece of lead inserted into their ear.
It would make you think, wouldn't it, mate, before you kick the door in, if you knew that most of the people had something that they could potentially, you're not stopping crime by stopping people like ourselves that don't want to go out and cause any bother. Stopping us from having guns doesn't stop crime. What it does is it gives more power to the people that are going to go out and commit crime, and like the government, for example.
Yeah. It gives a monopoly of force to the state and to criminals. I mean, James Holmes, the guy who allegedly carried out the cinema shooting in the United States. I mean, I personally am not sure it was him, and also I suspect he might have been mind controlled. But whoever did it deliberately targeted a cinema where it was a gun-free zone. He drove past several others where people were allowed to conceal carry in there. He deliberately targeted the gun-free zone.
Look at what happened about a couple of years ago in the States, in that church, where that guy got up and started shooting people. He was taken out within seconds by two guys that were concealed carrying in the church. Yeah. That's the way. Again, let us take responsibility for ourselves.
I think it's happening in Switzerland.
Let us have guns.
Someone was harassing a woman about to rape her, and suddenly just completely died because took people opposite, bang, because they're armed to the teeth in Switzerland. But is it Switzerland? No.
Yeah, in Switzerland, everyone is armed in Switzerland.
Yeah, I know in Switzerland they're armed to the teeth.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I mean, what happened in Harlow, I knew someone that ran a printing business there. And what happened is, these sort of like 1930s factories with the glass roofs,
the triangle roofs where they go.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. Well, what happened is, bloke next door to him was a small engineering workshop, and some tow rag fell through the roof. They should have been up there because they was wanting to break into this engineering workshop, and impaled themselves on his lathe because he left the chuck key in. I don't know why, but anyway, he impaled himself on this lathe. And when they came in on Monday morning, there he was. And this tow rag got criminal charges against the owner of this business because he left the machine in a dangerous state. You don't expect someone to go through the window.
Yeah,
that's called karma. That isn't it?
Yeah. So it becomes it's ludicrous. Anyway, back to chat. A foreigner walked into my house in Kings Lynn one Friday evening, high and drunk. I pushed him out with force. The man was begging me not to call police. I didn't call police. Stranger in home. No.
This is UEC. You from Kings Lynn, my friend? You sound like you might be. You're talking about people from outside Norfolk as foreigners, by the sounds of it. So
that's right. I mean, let's face it.
You see a lot of people from your part of the world today, tonight.
That's right.
There's Louise and yourself. And
by the way, do I need to go into Norfolk? Do I need a passport? I mean, is there the barrier that goes down?
No.
Oh, hey!
Where's Chrissy's gone?
And it's back again. Every week does it.
Oh dear.
There was a very
do you need a passport? No,
yes.
But you probably, if you're going to stay more than a week, you'll probably need a sponsor.
What about a phrase book? Because I need to speak.
You can get them, mate. Every Tesco's in Norfolk sells Norfolk dialect phrase books, so you can get one if you want. But mate, if you're with me, don't worry. I speak the lingo.
He'll be your interpreter. Yeah.
Yeah,
I tell you what he
I
said.
can speak fluent Norfolk, mate. I know what a Dodman is and a Jasper and a Bishy Bashy, and I'll tell you not to stop blaring, and I'll show you how to do things. And mate, honestly, you're covered. I know the lingo.
I had a bloke. I worked with a bloke from Suffolk. I'm not sure whether you speak to Suffolk people because they're foreigners.
Different language, mate. Different language.
And he said,
there.
"You piss balling me around."
Yeah.
That was honest. You piss balling me around. He's on the phone. You piss balling me around.
Yeah.
Another one he said, I had a donkey this morning. I brought a donkey with me for my lunch. And a donkey was a loaf of bread, which they
pulled out, hollowed out with the fillings.
That's it. Is that the same in Norfolk, a donkey?
Pig's ear.
Yeah.
Pig's ear, mate, in Norfolk. It's a pig or a dog ear, or yeah.
There was a fella in King. Louise said, sorry, I didn't mean to cut across you there. There was a fella in King's Lynn doing auditing. He got some proper stick from Plod.
Oh, wow.
Well, it depends where he's doing his auditing. What it meant in Norfolk.
What kind of auditing?
In Norfolk. I've got responded auditing.
Well, the auditing, like, is the auditors, like, I mean, I suppose some of them I think some of them are just trying to wind people up for good footage, but some of them make good points. I mean, they make people aware of what their rights are, about how forces of law and order, especially private security guards, don't even know how limited their power actually is.
But some of them are really provocative, aren't they, Ben? I've watched a few, and you don't need to do that. You just, it's clickbait, isn't it? They're trying to
some of them are
literally, to
some
get more views.
They're literally
wrong.
Just,
it's
trivializing serious issue.
Yeah, and when you start deceiving people by setting up situations and things like that, and like we say, making it clickbait and wanting more, then you become part of the problem, don't you? And you're no better than the people that you're auditing.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah,
I'm all for holding people to account, but I've watched some of those videos. Some of them are, like you say, there's some good people doing it, but some of them are just out to wind the plot up and
found that
just for views. That just be what you want everyone else to be. If you want people to be sincere, if you want people to be kind, if you want people to be good, then be that yourself. Don't go out there and try and wind someone up just to get a few views on your channel, because you're no fucking better than them. Sorry for my language, mate, but that's how I feel about it. You're not helping. You're not bringing anything to light. You're just creating a problem and then popping it on there to get some views. So
Ancient Ruby's just says something very interesting.
She often does, Ben.
Oh, great! It's pushing new laws to change for the police to use auditing as an excuse for the new laws coming in. This is an important point. They do, whenever they want to introduce a new policy through Parliament, they will often manipulate public opinion.
Yeah, of course.
With certain news stories. And Richard D. Hall himself made this point about the whole case against him and this horrible, that disaster troll series that Mariana Spring did. There was the Radio 4 thing, and there was that Panorama TV show. And he said it's because what's going to happen pretty soon after the next election, it's likely that there's the online harms bill is going to be put to Parliament again. It was actually introduced to Parliament before, but the House of Lords, I mean, people slag them off. The House of Lords removed the legal but harmful clause, which essentially makes it worthless from the point of view of censorship. But I think Starmer, has plans to bring it in again. He wants to.
They'll get it in, Ben. It's theatre. The House of Lords is all part of the pantomime as the House of Commons. It whatever they want to do will happen. And of course Robert's pulling strings, mate.
We will find a way around it. I mean, we will.
Yeah, of course we will.
We will, like I say, they make us jump through hoops. We'll jump through them. This is an arms race of intelligence, and I think we're
good one, Robert. Good one, Robert. I won't read it out in full, obviously, for reasons. BLM are just as much weaponized and funded outrage specialist group as the What's It lobby. Yes, I agree with you, mate.
Yeah.
Because I was actually, I was writing a little piece today in Telegram, and I actually think our civilization will go like the Byzantine civilization, where the Roman Empire was so corrupt and so absolutely anything went in Roman Empire, and it just collapsed, it imploded on itself. And then what happened is you had the Byzantine Empire, which went on till the Middle Ages.
It broke away, didn't it? Yeah.
Broke away. I'm wondering whether there's going to be somewhere in wherever, I don't know, Europe or wherever, where you're going to get people who are so sick of this pantomime that's going on that will be the country that everybody will flock to. People that's had enough, a bit like the Byzantine Empire. Who knows? We just don't know,
We don't, mate. I mean, where do you stand on the 4 Yugas, Chris? And the fact that time is being cyclical. And Ben, do you have any opinion on this? Where
I do.
I'm almost invested in this. Well, not invested, but I think out of all the scenarios, this one sounds quite feasible to me. That time is cyclical. That we have these 4 Yugas. That we're now in Kali Yuga, the end times. And that there will be a harvest or a collection of souls at the end, and that then we'll start the process again, and we'll go back into God consciousness. I mean, what do you read or know much about that? What do you?
I'm very interested in that, and I'm very interested in the comparative mythology. For example, the Mayan calendar long count ended in 2012, or changed over in 2012. This was just 12 years after the second Gregorian millennium, of course. And then Indologists do disagree on this, but I was reading an article in Nexus magazine that said the Kali Yuga will end in next year, 2025. Now, when that happens, it will give way to what they call the Satya or Arya Yuga, the golden age, or the age of nobility. And also this is, of course, in Western astrology, it is very close. No one knows exactly when, to the dawning of the age of Aquarius, which, of course, is a famous song. Now, the fact that this comparative mythology exists from cultures who had no real connection with each other, as far as we know, indicates to me there may be an objective truth behind it.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll find out anyway pretty soon, but I mean, there's no doubt we're going through a period of enormous change. We're going through a lot of upheaval.
Mate, this year is going to be potentially the most pivotal year for a long time. I don't know. I mean, I don't know, but I've got a feeling in my gut that something's going to happen. I do too. And I had that same feeling in November, December 2019. I had the same feeling that something big was going to happen.
And what happened? What happened a few months later?
Yeah, and I think this year as well. I think potentially they've got some special things teed up for us this year. So 2025 could fit, mate.
They will. Matter. I mean, they will.
Sorry, mate. All I was going to say, it doesn't matter, because this is just a video game, mate. We're here to come and learn things, and then we'll get another go. This isn't the end. I'm firmly of the belief that is one of the things that I will say that I know to be true. I've had conversations with my nan. She's been dead for 20 years, mate. I speak to her nearly every day. I know it sounds insane, mate, but I don't think I don't think this is the end, mate.
I'm interested in spiritualism, I'm interested
we shouldn't worry. That's the point I'm making. We shouldn't be scared, because this isn't, this isn't the be all and end all. There's more to it than just this. So stay true to yourself and be the best version of yourself you can, and just whatever happens, we're just going to have to run with it anyway, aren't we? So just keep trying to be the best you can and be a good person. That's what counts, I think.
I'm interested in spiritualism and things like that, and I do take that very, very seriously. And I also know that, I mean, it was obvious that our enemies were going to come up with something else, because they kind of, like the whole C word thing, the disease, that all ended very suddenly in November 2021. It's almost like it just went hard stop.
Say what you want about Putin, Ben. He got rid of that, didn't he?
He's one of the few statesmen I feel any respect for. I just done a video about him, actually, and
Russia.
and then there was I thought to myself, but that's not going to be the end of it. They're, of course, are going to try something else. But I think the resistance that the bad guys are giving us is an indication of their own insecurity and their own fear. I mean, they're doing what Sun Tzu says. They're behaving like they're strong when they're really weak. And so maybe it's something. However awful it is to go through these experiences, maybe it is when we take a step back and look at it in a bigger context. It's something we should welcome, because they wouldn't be doing this if they weren't really worried, if they weren't experiencing serious opposition to their agenda. Really, and they are.
It's just a ride, mate. This is just a ride. Bill Hicks nailed it. That's what
I like Bill Hicks.
Yeah, I do. I love that 3.5 minute skit about it's just a ride, mate. It's so true. It really is, and that's why they whacked him. That's why they whacked him, mate, because he was coming out with truth bombs like that, and like he says, shut him up. I've got too much invested in this ride.
Yeah,
it really is. And
so that we kill those guys. We kill the good guys and let the demons run amok.
So true. He was a poet, mate. He really was.
I loved his stuff.
Yeah, favorite.
It's so good that so much of his stuff was filmed, and I'm so glad about that because you can get it on YouTube. It's really good.
Well, they recently, didn't they? Who was it? Because he filmed a live skit. Was it NBC or the Friday night show or one of them? Didn't he? He filmed it, and they never showed it. They didn't show it for like 30 years or something until long after he died. But they recently put it out there, and it's available now. And I'm glad it is, mate, because. He was trying to let us know what was going on. And
when you think about it, you imagine if you did away with all these psychopaths. Once I did away with them, I believe in putting them on an island on their own. They need to be away from us.
It's fine with me.
All around the world would get on. That's right. Would get on really well. They really would. Without any social engineering, people generally get on okay. And for a perfect example was when convicts were sent to, when they weren't convicts, a lot of them were just innocent people, were sent to Australia, in about 200 years ago, 200 or 300 years ago. A lot of the convicts escaped, and if it hadn't have been for the Aborigines, they would have died. And they were actually accepted, and the Aborigines helped them, and they married into the tribes. And that's why you see there's a lot of Aborigine tribes with very pale-skinned people because of the convicts. And when you think about it, in those days, if you're starving and you stole a slice of bread, you could be sent to Australia. So that there was kindness, and we was actually conditioned to believe that primitive people, they're aggressive people. No, not always.
Oh, mate, they were far more tuned in and
far more advanced.
That's why they killed all the shamans in Africa, mate, because they were far more connected with source than what the white man could ever be. So they killed them because they recognized that they were powerful and that they had more knowledge than they ever could possibly wish to have. I hope that wasn't your phone, Mr. Von Essex.
I mean,
it was my phone going ding ding, and it was to tell me that I got a message. So I'll look at it tomorrow morning.
We had our own shamans. We had like the druids and the witches and people like that, and which is why they were killed by the Roman Empire and by the church, and the witches were burned at the stake. And they had the cunning folk and people like that. So we white people, we in Europe, we had our own shamans, but
I agree. They were wiped out long before the black
wherever that. And it's funny because the same thing happened, even though these things happened like 1,500 years apart. It's almost as if there was some kind of policy in place, maybe through secret society networks and things like that.
It's been with us for thousands of years, mate. The control grid. I think it's always maintained the same level of power. It's just the techniques that have been used to enforce it have adapted over the years, and it's like they fine-tune it every 200 or 300 years, don't they? And they find another way. Obviously we had the monarchy, didn't we? And we had kings and queens up until 300 years ago, and then they realized that people were starting to get a little bit ticked off with that. We'll give them demonocracy instead, and they gave people the illusion of having some kind of control and choice over their own destiny. And again, these paradigms, these paradigm flips, they'll happen, won't they? Every 200 or 300 years, something will change, but nothing really changes, does it?
No, there's a lot of false change. I mean, for example, the fact that we were given, republics were formed and things like that. So everyone's free because you get a chance to put a cross on a piece of paper every few years and choose your government's public relations officer, and you think that makes you free. It doesn't. It doesn't make you free.
Says that you're never going to beat the system within the system. That's the problem. They've made the system so watertight from their point of view that an idiot like me, or a regular chap like one of us, is never going to be able to make any kind of impression by going down the politics route.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'd never. Yeah,
never.
I don't think I could ever be a
never.
politician. I mean, I've got too much baggage anyway to be a politician. But
you don't. I don't want to be a leader of people. I just want, if anything, one of my biggest things in life now is to just try and get people to see that they can take responsibility for themselves, and nobody needs a leader, mate. Nobody does.
You're lead, yeah.
No, sorry, I was just going to say, if you want to lead, just do it by example. Just.
Yeah, I mean, I don't trust anyone who doesn't lead by example. Yeah, I mean, the people who preach things and then they break. That's what politicians do all the time. They preach things and then they break their own rules.
Well, actually, this brings me on to next week's show, because I made a note of it today. I was going to call it WPIW, which is Wolfpack Idol Worship, and we're it's a kind of idol worship. People like to worship an idol as if that idol is going to do something for them. And I've noticed this. And when just going to say is, I knew a girl once who was a anthropologist, and she was saying that the tribes that are the most peaceful are the ones that don't have a hierarchy. The most aggressive ones are the ones that have a hierarchy.
Makes sense.
And there are some tribes that don't have a chief. They have the elders that they talk to, but they don't have a hierarchy. The women help the men when they go hunting. Those tribes are the most peaceful a lot. But the ones that have a hierarchy, one bloke has one feather, the other bloke has two feathers, and somebody else, they're the most aggressive.
Yeah, I believe that.
Hierarchy that makes things aggressive. Yeah. And she said, whenever you look at these tribes, there's a tribe in the Amazon that's very peaceful tribe. Why? Because the males and the females help each other, and there's no hierarchy at all.
If they ever get conquered, I'm sure someone will bring feminism in to destroy that.
Oh yes. Well, somebody just said that. Pandora Chaser said, stock up on eggs, folks. Farmers are saying there will be a shortage soon as their hens are identifying as roosters.
Very good.
I would never dream of misgendering a chicken. So yeah.
Bill Gates has recently said that anyone that shares misinformation that is not on the mainstream media should be blocked from the internet.
He's the one. There's no surprises. He's often stated he believes this, and there's no surprise he said it again. And of course, this is what the governments are trying to do right now. I mean, it's been predicted for a long time.
They will, Ben. They will, because the internet, in my belief, it was brought in to corral everybody together to find out who fought what, and when the time is right, and they want to shut it down. I think that you'll only be able to access the internet in years to come with a biometric digital ID. That's the only thing that will get you online, and they'll be able to switch you on and off as and when they choose. That's where the internet's going, mate. The idea of the internet was to get everybody sucked in to start with before they and now we see the control ramping up, don't we? We can see what they're doing with it.
Yeah, I mean, this is
it was a trap from the start, mate, hence why it was called the internet and the World Wide Web.
Yeah. I mean, incidentally, what I said about Keir Starmer earlier and the online harms bill, on no account am I suggesting you all go and vote Tory, because, well, if we don't vote Tory, they will get in. No way, no. I predict that this coming election is going to have a record low turnout. It will.
So.
I mean, I think a lot of people might vote for reform. I mean, anyone who's sort of got any activity inside them will probably vote for reform or the Green Party or something. But the mainstream parties, of course, there's always ways of dealing with that. But I think generally, the turnout is going to be very low because, I mean, look at what there's literally. It's so obvious now. There's no choice between the two candidates. The two main candidates are literally carbon cutouts of each other. So yeah, sort of
very woke.
Yeah, they're both going to do it.
I mean, what about the Heritage Party with David Curtin?
I like David.
I met him a couple of times. He's a good guy. I've met him a couple of times, and I
that's why I won't get anywhere.
Yeah,
said
that's how I feel about it, mate.
Is this good guys don't, you see? The system doesn't allow good guys to get through. I met David Curtin was on the March for Life, and I met him there on the March for Life, and he was also at the Oxford Freedom protest with his stall and everything. And I mean, I think he probably realizes, he's more of an educator than a politician. He's not going to get a seat in Parliament, but he's going to probably hopefully change a lot of people's minds.
Fair play to him for what he's doing. I like David. I like the way he comes across. He comes across as sincere. He comes across as decent. I don't think that he's going to change bugger all, but I'd love him to prove me wrong.
So, same here. Good luck, David.
Yeah.
I've had a fair amount suggested that I have him on the show. I don't know, because I don't want to go down the political road. I don't know.
But David's not a regular politician, is he, Chris? David, like I said, he comes across as someone who's sincere.
He does. He is sincere.
I would, if you ask me my opinion, I would give David a platform and I would let him have his say, mate, because I think that people like David, it comes back to that thing that Jenny said sort of when we were on about 5 or 6 months ago, about if you allow yourself to just envisage a future where you've got no say and it's all going to be shit, then that's what you're going to end up getting dished up. You've got to believe that we can make this better and that we can change things, otherwise we are just going to end up tucking into a giant shit sandwich every night, aren't we?
It's good because the old saying, was it, the more bread you got, the less shit you have, and the less bread you got, the more shit you eat. That's true, isn't it? Now it's just Hadji says, I'd like to see John Hamer on the show with Ben and the boys.
Oh, John, John and I are supposed to be having a debate. It was True Seekers Teesside. We're going to arrange it, so I'd love to talk to him. Yeah,
that would be good. What are you going to debate, Ben?
Flat Earth.
Right, where are you? On which side of that?
I'm a roundhead. I'm a globalist.
Mate, I'll tell you where I am. I don't fucking know, and I don't care. I've got far bigger fish to fry, mate, than what shape the imaginary 3D video game thing that I'm sitting on is. It just, to me, I'm curious. But really, I don't care, mate. Far more important things going on.
To be honest, Chris, it's only meant to be a bit of fun. I mean,
but
that's
people get carried away with it, don't they?
I know. There's one nasty. I get a lot of nastiness from people, and I've seen it from both sides actually on the other. And
mate, it's like a religion, Ben. I met a guy about 5-6 years ago. My wife's work Christmas do, and prior to us going, she told me about this lady that worked there, and her husband, she said, oh, he's just like you, or he's in all the conspiracies, you'll get on really well with him, I'll make sure you meet him. So we got there, and anyway, this guy got introduced to me, and it's all he talked about. And the next day, mate, I got like a dozen WhatsApps with him, like, Chris, read this, Chris, look at this, Chris, read this.
Oh God, yeah.
Because I told him I wasn't bothered. It was like it became his personal mission to make sure that within 6 months I believed the world was flat. And that's what I find a lot of these people are like. They are maniacal about it. They are obsessed with it. Whereas, really, in terms of the pieces of the jigsaw, it's probably one of the least important ones, I think.
I'm quite happy. I have an opinion on this subject, but I'm happy to discuss it in a friendly, civilized, light-hearted manner. And to me, like, I agree with you. It really doesn't matter when in the bigger scheme of things. And so I would only ever discuss it in a very, very light-hearted, nonchalant way. And I think I can with John. You see, I think I will with John.
Yeah, and mate, I'm not dissing you for doing that, but the reason as well, Ben, that makes me suspicious is the fact that they parade these people on mainstream telly. And they'll have people on and they'll give them time to talk about flat Earth, and then they'll mock them for it afterwards and all that. That, I think, is as well. I'm suspicious of anything that gets a mention on the mainstream telly, mate. So I think flat Earth is an intentional distraction. Well, it's something that's to take away attention from where attention's more important.
You're probably right, but John Hamer, we've done a show. It's going to be put on the Naughty channel, BitSheet channel. I'll tell you soon when. And it's called the External Combustion Engine. And you can imagine what that's about. The external combustion engine. Electric cars.
Mate, you still haven't done that yet.
No, I still haven't
you got
edited
that
it yet.
interview done. I thought you were.
We got the interview done, but I've got my bloody finger out to get I've been too busy to do the
Chris,
editing.
Let me speak to Fred. We'll get Fred to do the editing and get it on.
Fred the plant. That's a good idea. Yes.
Yeah. Get Fred to do it, mate.
Because you know, one of those scooters blew up again. You know, luckily no one was actually riding it at the time. But I saw another video of one of those electric scooters blowing up. I mean, it was just
they're shocking, mate.
Dissolved into a ball of flames. It was like
there was a container ship, wasn't there, Ben, a few weeks ago that caught fire that had it had EVs on, and they just caught fire in transit and burnt loads of these containers.
I know, it's incredible. Luckily, the ship survived. I mean, it didn't actually sink, but it could have done. I mean, it could have. I mean, God, it's
not good, is it?
No, I mean it's horrific. I mean, yeah. I mean, I think we're gonna have to go in a minute, but I could rant for ages about electric cars.
We come up to time. If you'd like to stay on after we sort of finish the show, Ben, because you know, because sometimes people dart off, think the show's ended, but because tonight has really gone well. It really has gone well. We got the formula right.
It's been fun, hasn't it?
It's terrific. And as I'm talking, I'm trying to find the end credits, which I do.
Buy my book, Roswell Rising, a novel of disclosure. If it doesn't vanish into the ether there, that's it. So £10, all good bookshops now.
That's right. So what was that? Roswell Rising.
Roswell Rising, again, Ben. A novel of disclosure, and it's a book about the kind of subjects we talk about on this program, and what would happen if we got the truth instead of the lies. It's just a story. It's a novel, but I think if you like this program, you'd probably enjoy that book. Especially about the UFO issue, but it covers other things as well.
Now, the website is HPANWO.
HPANWO, Hospital Porters Against the New World Order. Just put that in the Google. Yeah.
That's quite an unusual title, isn't it? Hospital Porters Against the New World Order.
Love it, Ben.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Chris.
Well,
and Chris.
Thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks for watching, everyone, and for commenting.
Thank you. And next week, the title of the show is called WPIW. See, so I like to do those. I mean, the strangest title I gave one was Ear Splitting Loudenboomer, which was like.
I like that.
Ear Splitting Loudenboomer.
Bit of mock German.
What the bloody hell was that about? It's from an LP, actually, by Stephen Wolf. Ear Splitting Loudenboomer. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us tonight. And join us same place, YouTube allowing, of course. same time, same place. And thanks, Ben. Thanks, Chris. It's been brilliant tonight.
Pleasure,
I really enjoyed it.
Pleasure.
And it just leaves me to say, whatever happens, have a bloody good laugh and good night.